One of the most interesting things I've learned about life is the good that can come out of bad. And the bad was being blown up, losing an arm. The good was that feeling of, wow, I survived. They came for me and they tried to kill me and they failed. I can do anything. That was partly good. But the other good was come out of hospital and somebody at the University of London says, Albie, what are you going to do now? And I couldn't go back to Mozambique. I'd have been finished off there. I've learned to walk and to stand and to write, and I'm feeling quite chipper. And I said, I've been offered a fellowship at Warwick University. What would you like to do? I would love to work on preparing for a new constitution for South Africa. Great. We've got a bathroom upstairs in the Institute of Commonwealth Studies. We can convert it into an office. We'll get money from Ford Foundation, Swedish International Development Agency. All of this coming from nowhere. And I'm sitting in the office and I'm thinking, where do I start? Let me go to Norway. I really like Norway. It's a young country. It's progressive. It's very socially oriented. It's got an open market, but everything's not dominated by the market. It's got a multi-party system. Very strong sense of community and social welfare. And what can I get from the Norwegian constitution that could be a model for South Africa? So I'm in touch with people who had actually worked in Mozambique as legal advisors when I'd been working there. I fly to Oslo. Your constitution, tell me about your constitution. Oh, yes, our constitution, very interesting historical document. When we broke away from Denmark, we had a constitution. Later on, we broke away from Sweden, or maybe it plays no role in the political, judicial life of the country. So I'm a little bit disappointed. They take me round. One thing I like very much, they've got ombudsman. I think, okay, that's something we can have. This person who's watching government can go into any government office, inquire. Okay, well that's one thing I can take back. And then I'm thinking now, Sweden's another country I like. They gave us a lot of support in the struggle. Very open societies, people speak their mind, but it's not that idea of freedom of everybody's on their own. You enjoy your freedom in community with others. Very strong cultural programs, social welfare programs. Constitution, almost no role at all. Denmark, same thing. Netherlands, same thing. So I developed what I call my regicide theory of a Bill of Rights. In these North European countries, the sovereign, the king, sometimes the queen, they weren't executed. They did a deal with the rising middle class. Parliament would collect the taxes, pass the laws. The sovereign would have a nice status, but there would be conventions about how society worked. You didn't need a constitution, a written document. In France, where they guillotined the king, in the United States that was created, where they said, King George, finger to King George, we're not interested in the king anymore. They needed a written document to articulate the new sovereignty. The sovereignty wasn't a sovereign inheriting a position, being the, if you like, the wielder of power and even the national symbol of unity. The sovereignty now was articulated, expressed through elected representatives. I actually mentioned my regicide theory of a Bill of Rights to Princess Anne when I got an honorary degree at the University of London, and she said, "Oh, I do hope we can get a Bill of Rights through less drastic means in the United Kingdom." So all that I got out of these reflections in that early period in terms of constitutional models was the Ombudsman. And I brought the idea back to South Africa, to the Constitutional Committee. We didn't like the word Ombudsman. The word Ombud looked very odd. It looked imported. So the term Public Protector was used. At that stage, the idea of the Public Protector was a busybody, a very nosy person, but who could only investigate and make reports, and then it would be up to Parliament itself to correct itself. What we discovered later on was that the constitution-making body wanted something much stronger. And so I think there's an interesting difference in the language used for the Public Protector in the interim constitution and the final constitution. And the text of the final constitution gave the Public Protector, as the court finally decided, Constitutional Court finally decided, recommendations that would be binding. I was surprised and delighted when the text of the final constitution was sent to the Constitutional Court for certification to see Chapter 9, Institutions for the Protection of Democracy. So when I saw Chapter 9, Institutions for Protection of Democracy, now I'm Justice Albie Sachs on the Constitutional Court. We have to look at the text to see if it complies with the 34 principles, doggedly negotiated in advance. And I thought, this is brilliant. This is brilliant, because it's selecting out institutions normally in the background. Normally you have a constitution deals with the legislature, lawmaking body, with the executive, with prime ministers, presidents and so on, with the judiciary, and then public administration, maybe a Bill of Rights. I've never seen a section specifically dedicated, a chapter dedicated to those mechanisms that are going to make sure that these major institutions that exercise public power function as the framers of the Constitution envisage and want. And I noticed the Public Protector is there. I noticed Independent Electoral Commission is there. And we'd received huge help from India. India, the country that has the hugest elections in the world that take days and weeks. It's like something, I don't know, 600 million or 700 million or 800 million people voting. And for all the problems and convulsions in India, somehow they've managed to have elections that are credible, and they gave us enormous help, and they insisted you have to have a professional body managing the elections, and a body that's there, that's not appointed by who happens to be in power at any particular stage. And you need to develop a whole culture in relation to elections and procedures and something that goes from generation to generation. So that became the origins of the idea of the Independent Electoral Commission. It's headed by my colleague Johan Kriegler, the judge. I think he did an extraordinary work with a very strong team, securing those first elections in South Africa that was so important. Then the battle over the judiciary. The judiciary is going to have a huge role, maybe bigger than any other country in the world, even certifying the Constitution itself. In fact, we declared the Constitution to be unconstitutional because the text, in certain respects, didn't agree with all the principles, comply with all the principles agreed to in advance. And given extensive powers to hold Parliament to account, to hold the Presidency to account, and to ensure that that value system, that first third of our Constitution is a value system. You don't start with institutions and say, okay guys, but remember you have to comply with certain values in a Bill of Rights. It starts with the value system based on our history, based on the preamble, a strong evocative preamble, based on fundamental features and elements, four very powerful entrenched elements based on a very comprehensive Bill of Rights. That comes first. Who's going to ensure that they are maintained and respected? You needed a very, very strong judiciary with the Constitutional Court at the head. But who would appoint the judges? And bitter wrangling at Kempton Park. Very unfortunate exchange, I think, between Joe Slovo, who was suffering from cancer, receiving treatment then, and Tony Leon. Two people so similar in terms of sharpness, wit, use of language, so different in terms of connection with politics and vision, and a very ugly spat between them. And I played a very tiny role, but an important role as it turned out, when Colin Eglin came to me during negotiations and he said, Albie, we can go along with the Constitution. There are things we would prefer different and so on, we can go along with it. The one thing we can't accept is that the government of national unity chooses the judges. We can't have the government choosing the judges who're supposed to judge for the best of the country. Can I speak to Cyril? And I took him to meet Cyril, and they worked out the idea of the Judicial Service Commission. And it was something, I think, unique in the former British colonies, and very carefully composed. We got something from Germany, where it's the Parliament that chooses the judges of the top court, on the basis that if the judges are going to have the power to overturn laws passed by that Parliament, we want to know who those judges are going to be. You can't have a caste, a judicial caste, self-perpetuating outside of the politics of the country. We need people who understand the politics and whom we as legislators can trust because of the independence. And there it would be the balance between the different parties, each watching the other, to ensure that you had fair and honest judges. So we drew something from the German system there. We wanted the legal profession involved. And we wanted the president, who's now going to be subject to the overriding decision-making of this body whom he's appointing, to also have a role in the appointment. So the president would then have the power to appoint the Chief Justice, the Deputy Chief Justice, and similarly in the Supreme Court of Appeal, after consultation with that particular body. So Judicial Service Commission now playing absolutely fundamental role in the life of the nation, because it's ensuring that judges will be appointed who would pass the tests required, and at the same time have the confidence of the bodies that are involved in their appointment. Clearly the CA, Constitutional Assembly, decided, okay, now we've got, I'm not sure which they started with, but maybe other bodies need protection, the Auditor General. I sometimes pose the question, next to the Constitutional Court, what is the body that does the most to protect human rights in South Africa? And people say Commission for Gender Equality, I say no. Human Rights Commission, I say no. Give up, I say the Auditor General. All spending has to be accounted for. There are some secret funds for security matters. They're also subject to certain controls. And if you have secret money floating around at the discretion of those in power, you can forget about fundamental rights. They'll be used to subvert elections, the Auditor General, and I think our Auditors General have been amongst our big successes in South Africa. Not a single one has been impeached or even challenged. And that's one of the virtues that we have. At least we know how money is being spent, and we can argue about it, debate about it, and so on. The Commission for Gender Equality. Some people felt it should be part and parcel of the Human Rights Commission. I think the Kara Asmal Commission even recommended that. But the women's movement felt no. So often rights for women get submerged into other things that are seen as more important. And we need to be able to speak in our own voice and to articulate our own concerns and interests in our own way. So that separate commission was created. The Human Rights Commission. And I think the idea then that it would play a very important role, not just considering abuses of human rights and failures and so on, but maybe even in dealing with conflicts. But that needn't go to litigation, needn't go to civil criminal courts. It didn't work out that way. And a special law was passed creating magistrates having powers to deal with issues that have been quite important. Then the Commission on Language Culture. I was told afterwards it played a very big role in securing participation by the very right wing in government, in parliament, in the elections. And I know that at the time when I was active at that level, we were very concerned to have them as part and parcel of the political process. Otherwise, they had guns. Many of them had a dream of a Volksstaat. They didn't want to give up on the dream, and this amazing section was put into the Constitution to allow the dream to continue. It's just a dream, but we haven't extinguished the idea, then we can join the general things. I've heard lots of critiques of that commission in different ways. It's not tough enough on all sorts of rogue religious groups that spray congregants with doom and stuff like that, and yet fearful that the government shouldn't be saying how people should pray and express their faith. Complicated things. But I think it was a brilliant idea to have the Chapter 9 institutions and to entrench some of them in very particular ways. The public protector, that was an issue that reached us when we had to certify the interim constitution. Did it comply with the 34 principles agreed to in advance? And one of those principles spoke about entrenching the powers of the public protector, in particular because the public protector would be poking his or her nose into government, would be poking the bear, and needed special protection, and simply a simple majority in Parliament wouldn't be enough. So it was pushed up to a 2/3 majority. The Auditor General is another person, is a person and a position that needed special protection. So what history has shown us is so much depends upon the incumbents. So the public protector, people felt I think his name was Lawrence Mshwana. Very lovely, amiable guy. People said too lovely, too amiable. No teeth, no bite. When lots of things were going wrong. Julie Madonsela, strong teeth, powerful bite. Same institution, same power, same text, but a different focus and energy. And maybe things were happening in the country that were more profound, involving personalities and figures very high up. And Tuli, many people feel, was the right person, the right place at the right time. She also had the right style, a good command of language, a good sense of timing. And then her successor, constant litigation, decision after decision after decision being overturned. Even a proposal on her part that the constitution be changed, which was kind of ludicrous. She functions under the constitution. Wasn't for her to propose, recommend, not recommend, tell Parliament you must change the constitution. So very much then depended on the personality and general public awareness of that institution. The IEC, Independent Electoral Commission, by and large, has enjoyed public support and favour. I don't think there's been a single election that's been seriously challenged. The very first ones under Johan Kriegler, there were clearly major abuses in KwaZulu-Natal, but the main political parties felt it's better we lived with those abuses, declare the elections free and fair, than examine the abuses that were made at that time, just to have that first thing to get the train out of the station, moving along, chug, 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 the new South Africa. And elections since then, I think the IEC has done myself a very, very good job. The Auditor General, I've already mentioned, I think has been extraordinarily good. The Commission for Gender Equality, I remember at a stage when I was waiting to see if I'd be appointed a judge, I'd given the interview. I'm still a free agent, going to the Commission's office then, very modest office, sitting on the floor, folding little pamphlets to put them in envelopes. Wonderful collective ambience then. And later on moving to very posh offices in Houghton, I think it was, upmarket area, different styles. I don't know, many people felt the Commission for Gender Equality could have had a more proactive role over the years, but they've had some brilliant people there and they've kept a lot of issues alive and made very important reports. The Human Rights Commission, quite often in the news, that's the nature of human rights, I think has played a very important educative role in the country and has supplemented the work that's been done by other commissions. So I think by and large, we're not a fair country, South Africa, by any means. There's massive inequalities and lots of social injustice. We're not a safe country. We should be able to walk around the streets day and night, keep our doors unlocked, windows open and so on. We can't do that. But we are an open society, an open country, and institutions of democracy from that point of view are vibrant and working and clamorous and noisy and energetic. And I think that's got a lot to do with the technology of having these watchdog institutions. They're not just watching, they're actually creating. And it was a brilliant idea to put them in a Chapter 9 with very, very special procedures governing their selection, public process involved in their selection, governing their security of tenure so that they can't be bullied and bossed around by powerful political and economic and other figures and so on. I think to that extent, hats off to the crafters of this constitutional arrangement that I think is still unique in the world.